Hi, it's Emily, Kidlit Book Love. I'm here to talk to you today about adults reading and enjoying and even writing or collecting children's literature, why we should, why there's so much judgment and stereotypes about it, and what are the benefits. Here I have a Fine Book Collections magazine copy that I picked up. This is a little bit older, but this is a bi-monthly, I think it's going to be 6 issues a year. And this is a magazine tailored toward adult fine antiquarian book collectors. And this whole issue was all about the 150 years of Alice in Wonderland and all the beautiful, brilliant, lovely editions of her books, of books done sort of about Alice over the years in various decades. It showed here lots of covers of lots of different books from lots of different decades. There's a very detailed article talking all about children's literature in general and how much money these children's literature, the classic ones, are worth. So obviously children's literature is not just for children, and I'm going to explain why. So why do I love children's literature? I read children's literature 99% more than any other genre other than my own books. I'm a writer. I write crime drama. So maybe for me it's an escapism from the dark, dreary, sort of R-rated world from the books that I write and edit and write and edit and write of my own. But I'm working on a master's. I'm finishing a master's in English with the children's literature emphasis capstone project. So my goal is to read 100 children's books of all different ages, starting from the early 1800s all the way to about the year 2000, and I've even picked up some modern ones, and then I just started collecting and loving them, and now I'm buying them just for fun, so I love them so much. Children's literature, the number one thing I love about it is because I am an art lover. It is pretty. You know, you pick up an adult novel, of any novel, James Patterson or Stephen King or any book, it's all text. There's no photos or art or drawings or beautiful color plates or illustrations. Children's literature generally has very fun and pretty covers. I just picked this one up called Nightmares. It's a new release. And it's a big fat novel, but it has... well, you know, it has a little more design in it. It does have every certain amount of pages. It has a little bit of illustration. It has some neat headers. I think children's literature generally has more design to it. Here is a beautiful Peter Pan edition, Barnes & Noble leather special children's edition. It's a gorgeous book. It has... you know, of course, the text itself, but also the drawings. You know, children's literature, they aim to attract kids to run over, oh, buy this book, Mom. So, on the bookshelf. So, they put a lot more effort into the design. I'm an art person, so I love design, color, drawings, illustrations, and I particularly love it in Victorian or older children's literature. So, I like to have great stories or novels with things to look at because I love art and literature. So that's why I love it. And look at this in the inside of this Nightmare book. You know, they're just so neat. They're just so neat. Here I picked up, I never buy younger children's picture books ever, but I picked up this one book in the Pinkalicious series. Sorry about my glare here. Pinkalicious, because it's a pink Christmas version, and there are a ton of these Pinkalicious books, but I love Christmas and I love pink, so I bought it for $4 just because I wanted to have it for the drawings. But her books have some really beautiful drawings in them, and you know, we have the pink Christmas tree in the back. So the art, sometimes I'll buy books for the pictures. I always read them. But most of the time I buy older children's or classic literature for children. So I buy and read children's literature because for me it's a form of, it's my downtime, my escapism. It's my, you know, some people go shopping, some go get a pedicure and a manicure and a back rub, some play video games, or some go golfing, or some, you know, do their hobbies. For me, it's absorbing into a fantastic child's novel, young adult novel, with all new characters, mystery, imagination, beautiful mystical places. And children's literature, you have to put a lot more effort into it as a writer to keep children interested, because they have limited context. They don't understand a lot of things. They get bored easily. So there's a lot more emphasis on settings, cute, funny names for animals and people, magic, for the land of the mist, unicorns and fairy tales, beautiful castles, and it's clean. There's not a ton of bad language and R-rated things like in the books that I write. So it's a nice break from that. And with an adult novel, I sometimes have to read a couple chapters before I really decide if I like the book or I'm going to keep reading it to get into it. With a young adult or children's novel, within the first 2 to 3 pages, you either know if you're hooked or not. And most of the time, I always like them. I'll read them. They hook you right up front, so that's one of the things that children's authors have to be good at. Here, this is a Pinkie Pie, so you might have heard of Ginger Pie, which is the book that came before this. So, great novel, just some drawings I have here. A vintage Boxcar Children. I picked up a couple modern editions of the Boxcar Children, read it, loved it, never read it, so I bought a few vintage ones. Just, you could read it in about 30 minutes. They're little novels, novellas, but they do have drawings even, which I like. And again, I picked up the Nightmares book. I have here a vintage book. This is Cherry Ames Student Nurse. There's a whole Cherry Ames series that came out around the time of the Bobbsey twins. Nancy Drew, I'm going to guess 1943, so in the 40s. This is a vintage copy. I just got it at a used bookstore. This is actually a first edition, I believe. So, I haven't read it yet, but there was a couple of others that I picked up, and I just recently reread the Betsy Tacy books from the 40s. When you read vintage children's literature or antiquarian children's literature, you get to see the books are written in the time period that the author existed. So it's really neat to see the settings, the way people talked back then, the clothing descriptions, the housing, the foods. I think, I enjoy history too, and I think it's just more fun. I'm a creative person. I'm an artist. I'm a writer. So children's literature is more creative, I think. So why is there so much judgment and stereotyping and this big black shadowy stigmata over adults reading children's literature? It is generally probably presumed by an ignorant person that if you're reading a children's novel, you are probably not very smart, you can't hold the attention span of an adult novel, you don't know how to read, you're slow, limited, or mentally handicapped, or there's just generally something wrong with you. I remember once I was sitting in an airport reading Stuart Little, and this lady on the chair in the terminal waiting, we're waiting to get on our plane, she's sitting next to me, she says, "Oh, you're reading Stuart Little. Oh, wow." I remember my daughter reading that once when she was like 5, ha ha ha, and she kind of laughed at me, and, so it's, but I don't care. The more people do that, the more I just whip out the even more embarrassing books, like the Winnie the Pooh, just to embarrass them. My kids are grown or older, so I don't have little kids with me, so I think it strikes up interesting conversation. And then when I tell these people, I say, "Are you married? And then you have a boyfriend?" They usually say yes, because it's usually a woman that says something. Men are kind of ignorant to these things. And I say, "Does your husband or boyfriend, does he play video games? Does he watch The Simpsons? Does he watch Family Guy? Oh, he plays games? Oh, yes, he goes on his 24-hour marathons on his days off with his buddies and plays online, whatever. Or, oh, he never missed a Family Guy. Or, oh, he collects Matchbox cars and vintage trains." Okay, so why is it okay for men to have their things that would normally, like cartoons or games, be targeted to a younger audience, but an adult cannot read a children's literature without being judged or having been told there's something wrong with them? I think it takes more intelligence, more wit, more bravery, more creativity and imagination to have an attraction as an adult to children's literature. That makes you smarter, because most adults wouldn't do it unless they're reading to their kids, and even then it's like, oh, story time, okay, let's get this over with so I can go watch, Family Guy, whatever. So, and so I think If a child were to pick up Jane Eyre or Wuthering Heights or David Copperfield or, Frankenstein or Dracula or some advanced classic novel, it would be like, oh, wow, your kid's so smart. Way to go. They're reading in a genre beyond themselves and how impressive. Here, let me go buy you some more big books. But if you reverse it and an adult reads a children's or young adult's novel, oh, suddenly they're dumb. There's something wrong with them. They must be, the biggest thing they say is, oh, she's having a second childhood, or she must have not got any good books when she was a kid. That's why I call it ignorant, because if anything, it's the people that had the best books when they were kids, that loved reading their whole life from the time they were little. Those are the ones that read the children's literature as adults, collect it, buy it. So, why should we read children's literature? Why should we read children's books, even if we have no children or our children are grown or just for the heck of it? Because it's fun, it's magical, it's mysterious. There's so many great things in it for everybody. It's easy to read. You can read a book in a day versus a week to read a big novel, a more complicated novel that slows you down. You can carry them easier. They're lighter. They're less expensive. $6.99, but even the smaller ones like this, the Pinkie Pie, $4.99. I mean, children's novels in the Barnes & Noble in the children's section, $3.99, $4.99. They're less expensive. I bought, for $120, I must have purchased like, must have been, I'd say 30 to 40 books at Barnes & Noble. When you think about how many adult books in the regular side of Barnes & Noble could you get for that price, why else should we read it? Because here's the big thing. Children's literature is written by adults. It's edited by adults. It's proofread by adults. It is sold by adults, marketed by adults. It is created under the context of adult experiences, trying to imagine what it was like, again, to be a child, so they could aim toward the market of the child. So if adults can write it, edit it, sell it, market it, why can they not read it? Makes no sense, does it? And it's hard. For me, it's easy to write crime drama, or rated R love scenes. I could just pump them out. I can write 16 pages. I could sit for 16 hours a day and write on my novels. I write these 700-page novels. I could do that. But I've wanted to write children's books, but I think about it, it's hard because you have to find a brilliant story that's beautiful, magical, well written, uses both poetry, prose, narrative, and art, and it has to be a simple story that has a lot of concept, and it's clean, and that attracts children. It's hard. It's not easy to write it. So we live in a children's literature world that is run by adults. So we should be able to read the books as well. If you work in a children's publishing house, or if you're a children's book author, of course you read your own books. You probably read your competitors' books. Those people don't get judged. So why is there sitting in the middle of an airport reading The Boxcar Children where you get dirty looks? Or if you're reading Lassie Come Home, The Penderwicks, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, Stormy Misty's Full, The Wind in the Willows, The Secret Garden, Madeline. If you're reading any of these books, boy, watch out, because you are going to get funny looks, stares, questions. But I bring on those challenges, and I say children's literature is brilliant, lovely, beautiful. It is engaging, it's captivating, it's hard to write, it's easy to appreciate, and they're cheaper, and you can read them faster. And if you know a lot about children's literature, you can probably get a good job. I mean, if you read nothing but children's novels, you could probably get hired in a library, a bookstore, in a reading program, as an elementary school teacher, as a middle school teacher. You could probably get hired in a publishing house. You could work in a daycare. Everybody that has kids or children wants their children to read and be smart. So if you know everything about children's literature, you know all the books, you will get a job, some kind of great job. So buy the children's literature. Don't worry about what people think. Turn the tables on them if they challenge you. I encourage you to read it because I think it opens the imagination. I think it's, whoever said becoming an adult has to be all about, bills and stress and divorce and bankruptcy and health problems and diet struggles, you know. Just because we become adults with all these responsibilities and stresses doesn't mean we can't have a wonderful, wonderful time reading children's books, children's literature. Who says, you know, we can't collect? I collect dolls too, vintage dolls. Who says we can't collect dolls or, you know, buy the old vintage board games or video games or read children's literature or buy Barbies, then keep them on a shelf for display? I mean, in the adult was and is the remnants of the child. We're all humans, whether it's age 2 or age 82. We shared the same life from the beginning to the end, and this thing where childhood, adolescence, young adult, old adult, elderly is divided into these sort of classes where each age group is supposed to do certain things is just sort of a cultural development that kind of came about for, you know, sales of retirement homes and sales of certain genres of literature and the division of teaching age brackets for schools. So there was reasons, economical reasons, and for dividing these age groups throughout a human's lifespan. And that it's kind of untrue that in certain ages you can or should or shouldn't do certain things. So read children's literature. Love it. Tell me what you think. What are your favorite books? What are your favorite children's books? Has anyone ever said anything to you about reading a child's book? Or I'd love to know what you think, and if you have any ideas what to tell them, share in your comments below, and check out my other videos and all my great children's book reviews, my book hauls. You'll find lots of great books. I never review anything that I don't think is fabulous. Take care. Thanks.